Welcome everyone to this episode of PEPTalk, Productive Environment Podcast. I am Andrea Anderson. I'm your host. I'm the CEO of Productive Environment Institute here in Carolina Beach, North Carolina. And Barbara?
And I'm Barbara Hempel, founder of Productive Environment Institute, and I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina.
And we are so excited to introduce you to our guest today. And this is part of our consultant collection. And when we say consultant collection, that is people who like to help people with organization and productivity. We have a team of certified productive environment specialists, and we also have colleagues that are productivity consultants around the world. And Marcey is one of them. She is actually an alumni. She actually came through our certified productive environment specialist program. I can't believe it, Marcey, over 10 years ago. Which is amazing. So I'm going to let Marcey do her official introduction for herself. I think that's always better to let people speak for themselves. But let me just do a couple things. First of all, I'll read out the title for those of you that are listening. So, How Marcey Rader Left Her Corporate Road Warrior Career to Become a Health-Powered Productivity Coach. And I've already was, talking to people about doing this talk today, and they're like, what's a health-powered productivity coach? So I told them to tune in. So y'all make sure you pay attention. So for the introduction piece, like I said, I'm going to let Marcey introduce herself. Let me remove the banner so we can be full screen. I'm going to start with 5 fun facts about Marcey. And I found these fun, actually, as well. And I know Marcey, and it was just fun to read these. So number 1, Marcey's husband is a professional drummer. Their first date was to Ben & Jerry's on October 19th, 1993. And they've had Ben & Jerry's ice cream every month on the 19th since. She said yes, over 360 times. That is so cool.
Which means this Friday, we'll also be having ice cream.
You're having ice cream this Friday. Now, see, we love patterns, systems, processes, routines, and that is certainly one that I really like. All right, and this is fun too. She has Brussels sprouts named after her at Mookie's. Am I saying it right?
Mookie's.
Mookie's New York Deli. So if anybody's watching this, are you familiar with Mookie's New York Deli? Go in and order the
Marcey's Crispy Brussels Sprouts.
Marcey's Crispy Brussels Sprouts. I love it. Okay. And then we have number 3 of 5. She can hula hoop and read at the same time. That's pretty impressive, Marcey. I love it. She eats most of her meals with chopsticks. That might be a tip. And her best friend of 19 years is her right and sometimes left hand at Rader Co. And they have ridiculous amounts of fun. How fun to be in business and work with your best friend of 19 years. That's awesome.
It is.
Well, it certainly supports the tagline of Productive Environment, which is accomplish your work and enjoy your life. And Marcey is, one of the reasons I'm so excited to have her on is she is a living example of accomplish your work and enjoy your life. So Marcey, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And, one of my taglines in the name of my last book is work well, play more. And that's what Lisa and I do every day. And Barbara and Andrea, you do not know this, but this is my 11th business anniversary today.
Today.
Oh
my goodness, we didn't know that.
Yeah. And so
wow.
I'll say what Rader Co is, and then I'm going to talk about how I met Barbara. So Rader Co is a productivity speaking, coaching, training business. And there are 8 coaches, and then there's Lisa, and I'm the lead coach. And the business model is about 50% speaking and training. So I speak at conferences. Then I also work with companies to help them with their email communications, all the chats, notifications, all those things, help them have more effective meeting environments, their task management, project management, and so on. And then we also do personal coaching. A lot of our clients come from those companies, and the companies hire us to do those coaching or to do that coaching. And a couple of our coaches actually also came from the Productive Environment Institute. And so the business has really grown since I was with you 11 years ago. And I met Barbara I mean, Barbara was the first person that I reached out to, and I went through the Productive Environment Institute training, and we roomed together at a NAPO event. And that's where I had my first and last beignet. And it was only my last because I ended up, having some health issues, and turned out I was gluten not very tolerant, and it was why I would wake up with stomach aches every day. But it was delicious, and it was with Barbara. But Barbara really was one of the inspiration for me as far as what direction to take my business. But even more so, her line "Together We're Better" has really, really stuck with me all these 11 years. And I do not see anyone as competition. And when I've worked with marketers and they say things like, who's your competition? It's like, well, nobody's my competition. We're all in this together. And that's one reason why, I brought 2 other Productive Environment Institute specialists on board. They have their own businesses even. And to me, they're not competition. I just received an engagement from another productivity specialist, author and speaker and trainer, just this week, because she couldn't do that event. And so, having that community and seeing people, in your field as a community really came from you, Barbara. So I want to thank you for that, because coming from the corporate environment, it can often feel very competitive, because, it's like one person can get promoted, one person can have this title, and so it feels like you're always trying to prove yourself in that aspect. So I just want to thank you for that, Barbara.
Oh, you're muted, Barbara.
One of the things that you are a walking example of is that God created every individual totally uniquely. And it's like when we bring out our uniqueness, it's like unlike anything else. It's unlike anyone else. And that's what makes it fun. And that's why we can be together. We're better because, and often in our own community, we have more than one consultant working with the same client because they're working on them in different areas. So so thank you for pointing that out, because I just think with what's going on in the world today, we are only going to solve problems in the world and in our country by collaboration, not competition.
Love it. I agree.
Amen. So when Marcey, you've said through the years, we kind of stayed in touch and how you're doing, and we've kind of watched you kind of bloom, and it's been so exciting and fun to watch. And you've said through the years that, meeting Barbara and then coming through the certification program, the Certified Productive Environment Specialist program, was kind of a springboard to where you are now and what you're doing. Can you talk a little bit about that and how I just remember in my story, it was overwhelming and daunting to think of starting alone and start recreating the wheel and starting from scratch. And when I found that Barbara, as well as you, kind of your story, that I was like, wow, things already exist. There's already an expert. There's a mentor that will teach me what she knows, and then I can grow beyond that. So can you share a little bit about your perspective at that time when that first started?
Sure. Well, it's incredible to think how far just technology and the world has come in 11 years. And, back then, coming from the corporate environment, I never had to think about marketing or a website or, my brand, what did that even mean back then? And so going through, just having somebody to say, I don't know what I'm doing here was actually the most helpful, because coming from that environment where I did know what I was doing, this was totally new for me. And, knowing that I didn't have to do everything all at once, I think was the most helpful. And while I absolutely got knowledge from, the how-to of being a productivity specialist, I think what meant even more to me was the community support and mentoring is, that's actually what I took even more away from it.
Yeah. I can second that. And that's good. The other thing that I wanted you to touch on, you said you've changed this a little bit now, but when we met, you were kind of hardcore into high performance athletic stuff.
Yep. Yes.
And you had a high performing job, like you were road warrior, working all the time, and then doing these high endurance sports.
Yeah.
And so you want to talk a little bit about that and maybe how that led into, is that what led to being the health powered productivity coach? Is that kind of where that theme came from?
Yes. But in a crooked way.
Okay.
So in my 30s, I did over 100 ultra and endurance races. I did Ironmans. I did races up to 48 hours. And I was on the road 48 weeks a year, up to 48 weeks a year for almost a decade as a business traveler. And when I left my job and started this business, my focus was on business travelers.
Right.
And then I realized I don't like working with business travelers because they could never, like their flights would be delayed or they would be in a hotel with bad internet. Because back then, if you remember, like a lot of times hotels, they still had dial-up sometimes, or you could stream. Like any of the millennials you have in your listening or Gen Zers right now, they're going to be like, "What?
What?
This was not that long ago."
That's
And
true.
so it was just really challenging for me to work with them. But I focused on business travelers for about 3 years. I was even a spokesperson for a national hotel chain for 2 years. And then, companies were, asking me like, well, I want help on my email, my task management and my time and all that thing in too, but we don't travel. And I just slowly transitioned to where I don't actually speak on travel at all anymore. And I refer that out. But the health piece, funny enough, when I stopped working for a company, I thought I'd have more time to train and do my endurance stuff, which was a crazy thought. When you start your own business, is like, you have no time. But at the same time, when I was 40, I'll be 50 in September. When I was 40, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease. And also, I had been in what we thought was menopause for 4 years at that point. And so I retired from racing, and, it took me years to really, rethink my lifestyle and what I had done to myself, what I had done to my relationships. And the term health power, and my background is in exercise science and wellness, my master's and my undergrad, but I worked in clinical research for 14 years. So I wasn't really working in that field, but I should have known better. And I released a TEDx in April of this year called The Relentless Pursuit of More. And it's about how I had such a high achiever mentality, was on the road all the time, and pushing my body physically so hard that it took 12 years for it to recover. And I actually started menstruating again a couple years ago.
Wow.
And here all this time we thought I was in menopause, and I wasn't. I had just wrecked my body that much. So for me now, health powered productivity means it doesn't matter how many emails you answer if you're staying up all night to do it. It doesn't matter how many tasks you check off your task list if you're not prioritizing the right tasks, which are is your health, but also your relationships. Because I always had this mentality that, when I reach X, then I'll dial it back. When I get a promotion, then I'll take some time. When I reach this revenue in my business, then I'll spend more time with my husband. The things that are most important took a back seat. So, and I learned it the hard way. And so now when I work with clients, it's really more about freeing up their time and energy to prioritize what matters.
Wow. I think that, one of the things that I've observed, my first entrepreneurial pursuit was 46 years ago, which just seems impossible.
And unusual back then for a woman. So
that's true.
Yeah. But what I've noticed through the years is how there are patterns of messages. In fact, I remember, Marcey, you're probably too young. The first running book was Jim, I can't think of his last,
Jim Fix.
Jim Fix. And I remember when his running book came out, and then after that, there were a whole bunch of running books. It's like there were a whole lot of them. Well, through the years, that's always happened. There's themes. Well, right now, ironically, two of my business coaches, one of them, Melvin Pillay, has written a book that's becoming a bestseller called Unwork. And the other one, Kevin White, who's the founder of my publishing company, Spirit Media, has written one called Only God Works. And it's about, we think we have to do it all, when if we're doing what we're called to do, then God will do it too. And you're saying the same thing. I mean, this idea of work, and partly that comes from our culture, right? I grew up on a farm in Nebraska.
Oh, yeah.
And working hard was a virtue. That's what you were supposed to do. My daddy was a dairy farmer. You mentioned ice cream. I have to tell you, my father was a dairy farmer. And when they came to pick up the milk, they dropped off the ice cream. So even when when money was tight, we always had at least 2 flavors of ice cream in the refrigerator. And so the question after the noon meal and the evening meal was, what flavor of ice cream do you want? And to this day, I struggle, because when I have a meal afterwards, it's like, where's my ice cream? But
it's a habit. Yeah. It's an ingrained habit. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So I've had to cut it back. It's not every day. And I do have it. And right now, watermelon milkshake is the specialty right now. So I get 1 a month.
I love it.
But that's a theme. So that's a theme, that this unwork, less work, and making relationships important, because after all, at the end of our life, nobody cares whether they worked more or not. It's who they cared about.
Yeah, exactly. So your theme, or you work well, play more. That's what is that? That's not the name of your business, because your business is.
No, that is the name of my third book.
Okay.
And it used to be more of our tagline. We do use it, we still use it, of course, but health powered productivity became more important for us.
Okay. Yeah. And that's so interesting. I would love you to weigh in on this. We're running boot camps now we have an office transformation boot camp where we teach the physical, the paper organization, the things that you're very familiar with, having gone through our program as a consultant. And then we also teach, we did that one. And then they said, well, we want to do the digital. We want to do the clients, the students said, we want to do the next part. We want to do the email too. So then we started that one. We've been doing that about a year, and it's going great. We have a lot of fun. We've got great people. One of the things that comes up with all of our clients, and I'm sure you see the same thing, is they're learning all the systems, they're learning all the tools, they're implementing as they're able, depending on their schedule and their lifestyle. But there are people that are really struggling with the motivation. Is it ever done? It's like, how do you find the balance when some of them are saying things like, I feel guilty enjoying my life because I have all this to do back here. I have all these emails to go through. I have all this paper to go through, because some of them are coming with years, decades worth of things to get through, and they're not going to get through that in a week or 5 weeks or, a couple of months. So how do you handle that with people that, to kind of find that balance?
Sure. Well, we're always going to have emails to answer. You know, we're always going to have breaking news that we have to look at. You know, we're always going to have these things. And, you know, reframing it to where it's not about catching up or getting ahead or anything like that. It's really more about prioritizing. And I know one thing Barbara says is, you know, like whatever happened yesterday, you know, if you focus on yesterday, then you're already behind today. And so, you know, if you're thinking about going back 5 years, 10 years or whatever, how is that really useful or helpful? You know, and really focusing on now and top priorities. You know, I ask people only three priorities. And I have a whiteboard right here. 3 priorities for the week, 3 priorities for the month, 3 priorities for the quarter. And I organize my life around that because it keeps me focused on what really matters. But also, you know, like, but we have the long list. We don't just have 3 things on the list.
Right.
So one way to think about it is if I were to go on vacation tomorrow, what would I have to get done today? If all my files were going to go away, what would I absolutely need to keep and focus on? You know, in my long list of emails, you know, if they were all going to go away, which ones would I have to pull out and answer? And, you know, thinking about it more like that, because especially, and this was how my brain used to work. But for people like me that feel like they need to get an inbox 0 all the time, or everything has to be clean, or all the boxes have to be checked. One of the best things that happened to me was in 2020 during COVID. At the height of COVID, I had more work than I could handle. I was a very fortunate person because I've worked remote since 2001. I managed a team of 18 people remotely all over the world when I worked in corporate. And one of my topics that I've trained people on for 13 years is work well remotely. So I had people calling me and saying like, you know, we need your help today, you know, and so I was using this unsupported task management app, which I do not use anymore. And in one click, I deleted all of my tasks.
Accidentally or
Oh yes,
oh,
accidentally.
no.
And because as a speaker, you know, I'm booked out. I have engagements in 2025, and I have all the tasks related to them. And I task everything. There's, you know, I have enough stuff in my brain. I don't need to keep anything else in there. I want to save it for the fun stuff. And so I deleted it. I immediately contacted the company, and, you know, it was unsupported. They're like, it's gone forever. I was on my knees in my office. I called my husband. I was sobbing. He thought something like really bad happened. Like somebody died or something. He was like, do I need to come home? I couldn't even get it out. And it was like, I deleted my task list, which sounds really funny now. But you know, COVID, I was already like under so much pressure because at the time too, I did not want to say no to anybody because there were people losing their jobs in my field, you know, in our field. And in 2 days, this was like on a Thursday it was on a Friday, actually. By the end of the weekend, I actually felt more liberated than I had ever felt. It felt amazing. And I ended up, I remembered all the important stuff. I moved into, we use ClickUp, and I absolutely love ClickUp project management system. But what it taught me was that I had a lot of things on my list that were just nice to have, that I wanted to do. And when I would move them forward day after day after day, and every day I would move those things forward, I felt like a failure. And so now I have a time frame on the things I'd like to do. And if they don't meet that time frame, then they just get deleted. The box just gets checked because I will never get everything done that I would just like to do.
You know, I think I just have to insert here because I think that's when people talk to us about, I mean, and the core of my passion is clutter in every form. Okay. There's physical clutter. And I think about a client I had one time whose house burned down. And he said it was the best thing that ever happened to him because it got rid of the clutter. It's the same thing as with yours.
Yeah.
So clutter comes in physical, digital, it's emotional. It's the shame of I should do this. It's the disappointment, all that kind of stuff. And then it's the spiritual part of what am I here for? What is my purpose? And if you don't, and when you look at all the people who are depressed and mental health issues now, it's because we don't have a purpose. And it is so important that you have a way to make decisions. And I love what you're talking about of how having the 3 priorities. That's a system. And we use the system of for a system is saving you space, time, energy, and money. And that's an example of what you've done. And so often when people say, can you help me with my clutter? Well, the first thing I'll say is that's the wrong question. The question is, will you help you with the clutter? Because it's ultimately you that have to solve the problem. But the other thing is, it is a myth to think that if you just got organized, you can do everything, have everything, keep everything. That is a lie. And if you're not willing to get rid of that, there literally is no hope. But if you're willing to say, okay, what are my priorities? And you hit the nail on the head. I mean, to say, what are 3 things? And not everybody would have 3. That wouldn't work for everybody, but everybody has to have some system that helps them. So one of ours is the art of wastebasket question about what's the worst possible thing that would happen if I didn't have this. And it started with paper, right? Well, then it was with email. Okay. What would happen if I hit delete? And now it's like, with to-do lists, it's what would happen if I didn't do this? You know, does this help me accomplish my work or enjoy my life? Does this help me work well and play more? And if the answer is no, it's clutter and you can't afford it.
Yeah.
Well said. Amen.
Amen. That's right.
One of the things, preach.
Exactly. We teach in the digital boot camp, we talk about, and actually the other one too, the office boot camp, about 2 to 3 top priorities. But like you said, I mean, we all have a long list. Like that's a master list, or that's an inbox where you're capturing all of those things, but then pull out 2 to 3 max. And people will try to argue. And I even tried to argue. I'm like, myself, I'm like, I could do 5. I need to do 5. It was always too many, because then if you didn't do those last 2 or 3, then you felt like you didn't do what you were supposed to do that day. So what I'm seeing what you just said, Marcey, with that whole long list that got deleted, there were things on there that were nice to have. And so I try to tell people, like, is it task list worthy? And we have our Swift file for physical papers. Is it Swift file worthy? Because you already have so many other things to do. Does this one really, is it worth putting it in there? Otherwise, put it in if you're not ready to get rid of it and say no, then, say no to it, then put it in a future potential, a perhaps folder, something like that. So as we wrap up here in the next couple of minutes, what advice, Marcey, would you have for people who are in a corporate career, and they've dreamed, or maybe at least maybe a seed has been planted to leave that career and become a coach or a productivity consultant? I had a similar feeling, and it took me probably longer than it should have for me to make that decision. But what advice would you have for somebody that's listening to this and watching this and thinking, well, I've got this job and people depend on me, and I've got this income, and I've got this insurance, and I've got this whole thing. I could never go out and start my own business. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, everybody's situation is unique, but I was our primary earner with all the benefits, and my husband is a gig worker, and I thought there's no way I could, leave my job, and I did it, of course, but I feel like often people give two different types of advice. One is, do it as a side hustle until you can grow it enough to feel comfortable. For me, that did not work. I told my husband at the end of February of that year that I would quit by the end of the year, and I would use the 9-10 months to build a business. But by July 15th, which is when I got my last W-2 paycheck, I knew that for my personality, as long as I kept it a side hustle, it would be a side hustle. And I needed to feel hungry and be hungry in order to really invest the time, energy, and money into it. And so I think knowing if you're the type of person who will thrive better if they're always a little bit hungry, or maybe when you're starting your business, a lot hungry, or if that will cause too much anxiety for you and you do need to like do the slower movement up, because, if you hear one advice versus the other, it might not be the right camp for you. For me, I do better being hungry.
Really good input.
Yeah, that is such truth. Often people say, a question we hear all the time, and I know you do too, is like, what should I do? And I always say that's the wrong question. The question is, what will you do? And there are so many different. I remember at the NAPO conferences, I would always say, and I'm sure I told you because it was your first NAPO conference, I said, you are going to hear advice today that someone will say do it one way and someone else will say to do it exactly the opposite.
In the very next session.
Yes.
Right.
And they are both right, because there are people who are going to make it work for them. And I now call myself Vision Accelerator. And my role in that is to help people figure out what they will do. And often that's something, it's hard to do in a vacuum, but having a conversation with somebody about, okay, what do I like and what's important to me and what it is, helps them figure out what's the best way to do it. And we have certified productive environment specialists who've done it both ways. We've had some who have jumped all in, and we've had others that have worked on it very slowly over a long period of time. They were employed the whole time. They were doing this very slowly, and then they jumped on. And we just had one who just left the corporate world for I don't know how many years, and she's launching it, and it's fabulous, and it's working out really well. But it's really the question of what will you do? But the bottom line is, if you feel it in your heart that you want to have your own business, you want to have the freedom. It isn't less work, as you pointed out. It's not less work. And one of the questions is, are you willing to work as hard or harder for yourself as you did for your boss? But the difference is the work you're doing is the work you can't help doing. I mean, it's like how you're wired to do, and therefore it's work, but not the same kind of work. So Marcey, thank you so much. It was wonderful to have you. It's so much fun to watch you grow, and I can't wait to see what the next 11 years bring. So thank you for celebrating your 11th anniversary with us.
Hang on, guys.
Thank you.
Hang on, guys. Don't go yet. So Marcey, you have a gift for the viewers. So tell them what they'll find at helloraderco.com/gift.
Yes. So my third book is called Work Well, Play More, Productive, Clutter-Free, Healthy Living, One Step at a Time. And it's set up over the course of 12 months. And there's behaviors in areas of productivity, clutter, and health, and levels of novice, pro, and master. And so the download or the gift is the first month of that book.
Wow, I can't wait to go get it myself. That is awesome. And we'll put this in our description, whatever platform you're watching this from. And guys, please go, if you're watching on Facebook or LinkedIn, please be sure to go over to our YouTube channel and like this video, subscribe to our channel, share this video with somebody that needs to see it. And also Marcey's main website is marceyrader.com. We'll also put that in the description. So go check out Marcey. And for those of you that are interested, or maybe this has planted a seed for you to consider and think about starting your own business and becoming a consultant, you can go to becomeaspecialist.com. One of the beautiful things that I love about our specialist program is that you can take the training, you can get certified while you have that job. If you still are employed or have another career or have a family, it's not so labor and time intensive that you have to stop everything just to do that. You can blend that in and then make that transition, however long or short it fits your personality, as Marcey pointed out. So definitely check that out, becomeaspecialist.com. And last but not least, for our organizees, you can also join our upcoming webinar at productiveenvironment.com/webinar. All of these links will be in the description and in the feeds that you guys are watching us from. So Marcey, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to end the stream and then we'll say our personal goodbyes. Oh, wait, I have one comment to share with you. This is from Kathy Music. Marcey, you probably know Kathy. This was a fabulous conversation. Thank you. So thank you, Kathy. She is one of our certified productive environment specialists, New Path Productivity. So that was awesome. So I'm going to end the stream and we'll say our personal goodbyes over here in the after party. See you guys.